Welcome to Lifestyle Solopreneur, the community for entrepreneurs who put lifestyle first. Join your host Flavia Barris as she interviews successful lifestyle solopreneurs and shares ideas to help you find the perfect balance between lifestyle, business, and self. Flavia is an attorney, marketing expert, and founder of several online academies. She's been featured in major media including BBC World News, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Post, ESPN Television, and more. Join us for this episode of Lifestyle Solopreneur.
Hey, Lifestyle Solopreneurs. Today we get to meet Tim Packer. He is a celebrated Canadian artist and also a former police detective who walked away from a stable career to chase a lifelong dream. He has since built a thriving multi-million-dollar art business, selling originals, self-publishing prints, and running a top-tier online art academy that's helped thousands of artists grow. Through the Tim Packer Art Academy and his upcoming book, You Can Sell Your Art, Tim teaches artists how to master both the creative and business sides of their craft. He's passionate about demystifying success in the art world, breaking down what actually works and what doesn't, and how to stop believing the myth that you either have talent or you don't. From mindset to marketing, from composition to pricing, Tim is on a mission to help artists finally make a living doing what they love. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
I love having you here because, we talk a lot on this show about entrepreneurship, earning a living, creating businesses. And I think a lot of people who are artists at heart feel they sort of need to put that part of themselves up on the shelf or lock it away a little bit and sort of dive into something that feels more, like profitable or economic. But I love that you teach people how to dust off their artistic soul and that is the focus. So tell me a little bit, what's your story? We want to hear about how you, went from being a police detective to what you're doing now.
Okay. Yeah. And it has been quite a ride. So when I was about 13 years old, that's when I really decided that I thought maybe I would really like to be an artist. And at the time, the wisdom was, well, you could only be a commercial artist or a graphic designer. You couldn't actually make a living just from painting what you wanted to paint and have people buy it. So I took graphic design in college. I came out of college, ready to take on the world. I wanted to be an illustrator because those were the graphic designers that actually got to draw and paint. But what happened is after college, I had over 2 years, I was in 3 kind of very entry-level positions that were kind of soul-sucking. And I got laid off of all 3. And again, 2 years in, I just realized this is not the dream, was not the dream. And I looked around and the people who were really successful were much more talented than I was. And so I just realized the dream's likely never going to happen. And the Toronto Police Force was hiring. And I thought I could use a job with some stability, with a pension. And so I went down and put in an application. And that was back in 1982. And I ended up getting hired. And that led to an 18-year career on the Toronto Police Force. And it was a job that I really liked and that I did really well at. But it wasn't what I loved. What I loved was art. And then I guess around the mid-90s, a couple things happened. One of them was that a good friend and fellow police officer was murdered on the job. And we all know about our own mortality, but we often don't really internalize it and really, really kind of take it seriously. And when my friend was killed, it just really struck me that there was a lot of things I'm sure that he planned on doing with his life later on. And for me, that was getting back to my art. I went about a 10-year period where I didn't draw, didn't paint, didn't do anything. I was like, I'll get to that when I retire. And then when my friend was killed, it just really struck me that, if that was me, most of my friends and people who knew me at work didn't even know that art was a part of who I was. I was an artist, but I was not creating art. And I just decided that was no longer going to be accessible. So I started getting back into my painting and painting 3 times a week. And that was at the same time that I discovered the whole idea of the growth mindset, that talent is not something you either have or don't have. It's something you develop. And the more I read about this, the more 2 things happened. I was very intrigued by it, but it also really kind of shook me because it made me realize that maybe I had given up on my dream prematurely. And instead of doing a job that I just liked, I could have been actually making a living doing what I loved. And so I decided that I was going to live my life for the next year as though I believed in the growth mindset. So I started scheduling my painting time just like it was work time. And I started looking at what are the things that I need to improve upon, like what are the dominoes, as Tim Ferriss refers to them, that if I knock them over, they're going to make a huge difference. And instead of avoiding those things, I kind of like took them head on. And within a year, my life had changed. I'd been accepted into a few jury shows. I'd won some awards. All of a sudden, people were starting to buy my work. And then literally 3 years from then, my wife and I were having the conversation, not if I would leave the police force to paint, but when I would leave the police force to paint. So with the millennium on the horizon, we decided that was a perfect time. So, when I went home for Christmas vacation at the end of 1999, that was my last day at work. And I started the Millennium as a full-time artist. And I then went on to have eventually a very successful career. And again, was living my dream life. And then in 2019, I had some very serious health issues, almost died a couple times. And that led to kind of my latest kind of business thing, which is my online art academy. Because when I was lying there in the gurney, both times thinking, I'm not sure if I'm going to be here in an hour, the overwhelming feeling that I had was gratitude. I literally had like no regrets. And I was just so thankful for the life that I'd been given. And I knew, yes, this is going to be hard on my wife and my boys. But if it's time for me to go, I just had like a huge thank you to whatever's responsible for giving me this life. And then I realized that, there are so many other people out there who share that dream of being an artist. And most of them are going to come to that moment in their life. And the regret is going to be that they weren't able to pursue that passion. And so that's when I made the decision that I was going to make a full-time shift from just cranking out more paintings, making lots of money, to my main focus being helping other artists achieve their dreams, whatever they are in terms of their art, and ideally making a living from their art.
All your students are so lucky that you have that mindset where you have shifted to teaching and mentoring others, because, there are a lot of people in the world who are sort of where you were many, many years ago, sitting in a job that might actually be quite satisfying, or they may be happy with their job, but it's not their art, right? What kind of art I know you paint, what, subject matter, or how would you describe your art? Or is it very varied with lots of different types of art that you're into? I love hearing about what people do, what that vision is that they can render with hands or sculpture or whatever it is you're working with.
Yeah, so now my work is a fairly narrow kind of subject matter, and it's mainly the Canadian landscape, mainly Ontario, Quebec. But my thing is painting light, and most often light streaming through the trees or light reflected on a lake. But yeah, most of my paintings are, and I'm fascinated by the abstract compositions that trees give us and that forests give us. It's just like an unlimited amount of different types of designs, compositions, colors. And so it's kind of, imagine, the most kind of vibrant fall scene that you can imagine, but with the sun streaming through the trees. That's kind of my subject matter.
And I know there's people listening to this who are just furiously typing into their keyboard right now on a search engine, Tim Packer art, because they want to see what you've just described. I know I can see it in my mind's eye. I mean, it sounds amazing. So you're now teaching this academy. How has that shift from being an artist to being a teacher affected your day-to-day? And what differences do you find in these roles?
Well, the day-to-day difference is I don't get to paint that much anymore. Most of my time now is spent. So I do a weekly live Zoom call every Wednesday with my students, and we shift that. We rotate from 9. One week it'll be 9:30 in the morning. The next week it'll be noon, and the next week it'll be 6, because I've got students around the world. I mean, and we do it just like this on Zoom. And a lot of my time now is spent creating content for the courses or content to help promote the Art Academy, which, I mean, we've spent the last couple of years deeply involved in kind of using social media marketing and that to get the word out there, where we've pretty much realized now that YouTube is that's the vehicle that works best for me. But most of my time now is spent around doing that. I work with my son as well. He works full time for me. And we just recently moved, my wife and I, up to Georgian Bay So kind of our dream home there. And so like 3 or 4 times a week now, I'm on a Zoom call with my son, and he runs the whole back end. He runs the website. We also publish prints of my work and sell them internationally. So he looks after all of that too. But yeah, most of my time now is focused around my students. And it's kind of funny because when I first had the thought that, okay, I'm gonna focus full time on the Art Academy. And the one thought I had was like, I love going into my studio every day. I love being only responsible for me. Do I really want to spend my days talking to struggling artists and, about how hard it is to be an artist and, all of the problems that come with that? And the answer that came to me was, yeah, I do. And I still love it. I get on my calls with my artists. They usually go an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. And I'm still pumped up at the end. And then we also do, whenever anyone buys even just like one of my online courses, which are just recorded courses, they get access to one live group Zoom call. Like every couple months, we'll do that with people who have bought the courses. And my last one I did went 4.5 hours. And I was still kind of jacked at the end of the 4.5 hours because I just love talking about art, about the business of being an artist. And I love it when you can just see light bulbs go on over people's heads and that you're actually giving them stuff that's going to be very valuable and maybe helping their life turn into the dream life they'd always imagined.
I love this. Tell us about your book, because your book is doing this for people. It's getting into their head the idea that they can make a living from their art. And you've actually made a very generous offer of getting a few chapters of your book to our listeners for free. But tell us about the book first, and then we'll explain how to get those.
Okay. Yeah. So like I say, I've been doing videos on YouTube for artists, like free content, for 10 years. And the Art Academy we've been doing for 5. But I also, I wanted to make it available, so that anybody could afford this. But also the one thing I got from my students, and I realized that, like going through video courses can be time consuming, especially if you just want to go and find that one section, whether it was on copyright or on how to price your art or on mindset or on developing your own unique voice. Where the beauty of a book is, it's basically everything that I've learned and put into all of my teaching, all in one place where you can flick through it and find it immediately. And it's set up into 4 sections, basically. In the first one, I just break down a bunch of myths about the whole idea of making a living from your art. The second section, I go through my story in quite detail, how I went from being a police officer who thought I wasn't talented enough to being an artist to the point where I am now, where people say, oh, you're so lucky you have this gift. And then in the third section, we really talk about developing the art, because that is the most important thing. And then in the fourth section, then it gets into the business side of things, when it's time to start selling, and then how to actually go about doing that, and social media, dealing with galleries, selling online, all of that kind of stuff.
Give us some case studies, students who've come to you who were maybe not doing really anything in the arts as a way to make a living and have come a long way and have grown into probably what they envisioned as a kid, right? Because in some ways we can spend our whole lives trying to just get back to what we found important and what we found appealing when we were young, before we had to pay rent and, pay for groceries and put gas in the car and all the things. So tell us a couple of case studies of people that have come through your program that have made some huge transformational steps.
Okay, so I'll talk first about Emily Valentine. So she was studying veterinary science at university. She was going to be a vet. She was working at a clinic part-time, but what she really wanted to be was an artist. And she had been following me on YouTube. And so I guess I have to backtrack a little bit. Back in 2017, I mentored a young artist who was the daughter of a friend of mine. I just happened to get to know her through her dad. The long story short, she decided she didn't want to be a landscape architect. She wanted to be an artist. Her name was Brooke Cormier, who's now like a social media superstar. But anyways, I said to her, if she was willing to have our sessions filmed, I would be happy to mentor her. And then I would just put them up on my YouTube channel. So I did that. I think it was between 2015 and 2017. And she has just gone on to incredible success. So Emily Valentine was this other girl, probably about 5 years younger than Brooke, who had been watching this whole series with me, with Brooke on YouTube. And just after one more of my YouTube videos where I say, listen, it's not about some gift. It's not about luck. If you really want to do this and you've got the passion and the willingness to learn and a work ethic, you can do it. And she decided, okay, I'm going to try. And at that time, I was just starting the Art Academy. So she was one of the first people who signed on with my Art Academy. And that was actually during COVID. So she just kind of put her head down for like a year and kind of worked away. And then she went and did her first art festival, which was the Toronto Artist Project. I think it was in 2022. And she sold out in her very first show, totally sold out like in the first day. And then she had to go get paintings that she had given to her parents and hang them on her wall. So she didn't have blank walls. And the same thing happened to her at her next two festivals in spite of raising her prices. And then I got a panic call from her where she was saying, okay, Tim, I have a festival coming up this weekend. I know I need to raise my prices, but like, I don't know how much, but I'm afraid of leaving money on the table. But if I don't raise them if I raise them too high, I won't have any sales. And so we came up with a system. She'd have two different price points. But anyways, at a higher price point, her biggest painting sold that first day right off the bat. And now she's at a point where I think she's got close to 500,000 followers on social media. She doesn't do festivals anymore. She just sells her work online. She was just elected to one of Canada's most prestigious art groups. She was an invited guest at the mayor's annual arts gala in Toronto earlier this year, and she's just killing it. And then another one of my students, Emma Hainstock, I'll try to make this briefer, but anyway, she was studying to get her PhD in some form of biotech. Same thing though, she'd always wanted to be an artist. And after seeing my YouTube videos, she joined on with the Art Academy. And this is really funny because she was part of my mastermind group where we do the weekly calls, but she had never actually ever participated. She was just on there kind of listening and going through all this stuff. And then I got an email from her that said, Tim, you don't know me. I've never actually kind of chimed in, but I've been part of the Academy for a year, and I just want to let you know how it's changed my life. So she went from having never sold a painting before in her life, not even to her family. And then the first festival she did $7,000 in sales. And then by the end of that summer, she had done $28,000 in sales. And she came from a family where she said her options really in her family were either doctor, or doctor. And she was saying, now my parents are like my biggest fans and supporters, and they come to her shows and help her. And she's just on the way to living the life of her dreams. So those are the kind of stories that really make it okay for me when I go, gee, I haven't really painted in 3 months. And it's like, that's okay. I get more satisfaction out of this right now.
That is so inspiring. So let's talk about AI, because AI is such a big thing right now, and everyone's talking about it. People are dabbling in it, trying to learn to use it. And there are several AI generation methods and processes and software where you can generate art sort of by speaking it into being, right? You can give a narrative like, in the style of Picasso, please show me an apple and some bananas and a person or whatever. And do you think that AI is going to either, and it could be a combination of all this, but either make more people be able to become artists, because now you don't have to know how to use a paintbrush to create something visual. You can sort of speak it into being and come up with some interesting things. Or do you think AI is actually going to make human-generated art more valuable because it'll somehow become even more rare and special because a person, not, an algorithm or a computer program, came up with this artwork? Or do you think a lot of artists will no longer be able to make a living with art because of AI? So there's so many different ways that could branch out. And I'm just curious what someone who's an expert in this world like you thinks about AI.
I think of AI in much the same way as photography. When photography first came on the scene, it was like, oh my God, this is going to put artists out of business, right? Why do we need artists when we can just snap a picture and there it is, we have it. And obviously that didn't happen. I think AI is a tool like any other. I do think the second version, though, of the fact that it's going to make actually original art generated by the hand of an artist more valuable. And I've seen that already in my career. Just everything we have now is so automated. There's so much kind of technology in it that there is a real kind of need and want for people to have something that was touched by the hand of an artist. Whether it's a painting, whether it's a handcrafted piece of furniture or whatever. So I think that will always be there. And the other thing about AI, it's kind of like, if you can learn how to do something in a weekend, then anyone can do it. And then I can find someone who will do it cheaper. So that whole AI generated art becomes a commodity that's very easily duplicated. And if it's easily duplicated, then you'll never, ever get to that high price point. Whereas something that is actually done by an artist, that it's taken, many, many years to develop the skills to do that, you can't find someone else to do it just as well, more cheaply. And that's what drives pricing, because pricing is all about, three things. There's desirability, scarcity, and urgency. So there's going to be no scarcity of AI generated art, which means it becomes just commoditized and the price will be very low. And work that's created by the hand of an artist, much scarcer, particularly if it's an artist whose voice is very, very popular. So yeah, I think AI is a tool just like anything else. I use AI right now. I know there's people out there who are artists who are just rolling in their graves, but I use it, for example, for my YouTube channel. So because you have to do the timestamps and the description in the YouTube channel for each YouTube video. But what I'll do now is I'll just take the transcript of the YouTube video and I'll plug that into ChatGPT. So it's my video of me kind of doing whatever. And I'll just say, can you break down the timestamps here and give me a description that I can place in the description of my YouTube video? Well, that used to take me 2 or 3 hours to do for every video. Now I can get ChatGPT to do it for me in a couple minutes. So I think it's just a tool like any other, and it'll sort itself out. But no, I don't see it putting real artists out of business.
Let's talk about where people can connect with you. The first thing is I'll mention, like all of the generous offers and free resources that our guests offer to all listeners, we will put a link to the first, the 5 free chapters from your book. The book is called You Can Sell Your Art. That link will go into our vault. We call it the podcast guestgift.com vault. So if you go to podcastguestgift.com, that's where all of those links live. You can also go direct, I believe, from your website, Tim. So tell us where somebody can find that resource as well as learn more about your academy and about you.
Sure. They can just go to www.timpackerartacademy.com. And there's right on the homepage, there's a place where they can sign up to get the 5 free chapters of my book. And they'll learn then about the different courses that I have for offer. And then also they can see a ton of my free content on my YouTube channel. So that's actually under Tim Packer Fine Arts. And there's a couple hundred videos up there. And that's all directed at helping artists earn a living from their art.
And Tim, I'm so glad that you're out there doing what you're doing. Not just beautifying the world with your own art, but teaching other artists how to unleash that artist within. So thank you for all that you do out in the world. I appreciate it. I know all of your students and fans appreciate it. And thanks also for being on the show today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and if you leave a review on iTunes, I promise I will read every single review. If you know someone who makes a full-time living from part-time work, and maybe this is you, please visit lifestylesolopreneur.com to nominate a guest or to nominate yourself. Because remember this, money doesn't buy happiness. But money in the hands of a happy person, there is no greater tool.
Today's episode was brought to you by the Get Shift Done program. It's a lifestyle-changing online class to help you define your business and lifestyle ambitions. and to set goals in a way you've never experienced before. This class will 10x your daily productivity with methods that will blow your mind. And if you use a coupon code podcast, the class tuition is 99% off. Visit GetShiftDone.com to enroll today.